I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Fergal.
And we're from Movie Smash.
Comic book movies are having a golden age right now with the MCU.
Movies based on comics aren't necessarily a new thing, but they're a big thing.
Join us every other Tuesday on Movie Smash.
We explore these movies and find some hidden gems.
Every other week, we revisit some of the best.
And some of the worst movies based on comics or graphic novels.
Was Green Lantern as bad as you remember?
Heck no!
Is Time Cop the most accurate time travel movie ever created?
Absolutely.
Was Mystery Men way ahead of its time?
Should they be revisited? Should they be forgotten?
Join us on Movie Smash and find out. Listen wherever you find your fine podcasts.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All Too Real 2. My name is Michael E. Cullen II, and with me, as always, is...
Sesame. Come on, what you doing? Go get yourself a dog. Encarta.
That was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I was moved by your name. It hit me down in the subcockles of my heart.
All right, good.
Yes. I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I'm going to go cry for a half hour now. But...
All right, do it.
Oh, wait, we have to record a podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
you could do a crying podcast.
Yeah,
just a podcast of crying.
This was like an ASMR podcast where it's just me crying for a half hour.
Oh my God. All too cry. Yeah. Wow.
Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that I was recently on another podcast as a guest. I was cheating on Sesame. And I was on this podcast called Pop Culture Junkie with the hosts Shauna and Olivia over there, and we talked about me, because that's my favorite subject, and then we also joking. We also talked about the 1983 TV miniseries V, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend. It holds up. It's scary how well it holds up today, and is very emblematic of things that are going on in our current society. Recommend watching that. But if you want to, I'm going to have a link in the show notes. But you go to popculturejunkie.com and you can find their podcast there. It's a good show. They do a lot of similar stuff to what we do. It's like two best friends talking about pop culture stuff, very similar to what we're doing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I recommend checking it out, and that episode especially. So today the show, I just wanted to say that our show, I'm going to start doing a new thing at the beginning of every episode. Today we are sponsored by, we're not actually sponsored by them, but we're sponsoring, I guess, in a way, translifeline.org. Check them out. Donate to them if you can. It's a resource for people that are, trans and need help in any way that they can. It's a good organization that doesn't, that won't rat you out to the government or anything. So it's pretty legit. The phone number is 877-565-8860. So if you're a trans person or someone that wants to help the trans community, check out their website.
Yeah.
Just wanted to bring that up for some good in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we talk about a movie that reminds me of all the bad in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, a movie that brought...
So today on the show, we are covering the 1991 film Nothing But Trouble. It was a movie of some sort. It was directed in his one and only directing outing by Dan Aykroyd, written by Dan Aykroyd with a story by Peter Aykroyd, his brother, who also appears in the movie. The movie stars Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd. Chevy Chase first is the main character of Chris Thorne, a 1980s Trump-like character, in my opinion. Dan Aykroyd stars in two roles as Judge Elvin J.P. Valkenheiser, as well as his grandson Bobo. John Candy is in this movie in two roles as well as Dennis and Aldona. Demi Moore as Diane Lingston, Valerie Bromfield as Miss Purdah. We have Taylor Negron, the late Taylor Negron, rest in peace. Also the late John Candy's in this movie. There's a lot of late people in this movie. Sadly, as Fausto something or other. Bertilla Damas as Ronalda, his sister. She in more recent years was on had a recurring role on Brooklyn Nine-Nine as Amy Santiago's mother. Raymond J. Berry, he's a really good actor. He's in a lot of things, but he is an FBI agent. We have Brian Doyle Murray as Brian, another FBI agent. I can't talk. John Wesley as Sam, another one. Peter Aykroyd as Mike the Doorman. Daniel Baldwin as a drug dealer named Artie, which I just need to point out, not for any reason at all, but it's kind of sad that his character is like this drug addict and drinking and all this other stuff. And in real life, he had major struggles with drugs and alcohol. It's kind of ironic or something, if you want to call it that. I don't know. Just kind of sad. But anyways, that's our main, named cast here. Here is the Internet Movie Database log line for this, the short synopsis. A businessman and his friends are captured by a sadistic judge and his equally odd family in a bizarre mansion in the backwoods.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. So, I need to ask you something.
All right.
What are your initial thoughts of this movie?
Honestly, I think we finally did it. This is officially the weirdest movie we have ever reviewed on this podcast in like 7 years. And to be at tops everything, like Tooth Fairy Jingle all the way to the Buttercream Gang sequels, the weird drug, the cartoon where the person gets high on weed and they immediately become a heroin addict. Just like all the weird, fucked up fake superhero movies, shows we've seen, all like Beethoven's Fifth with Judge Reinhold. Speaking of judges, Judge Reinhold. None of it even combined. If you just combine those hundreds of episodes, I mean, the Star Wars knockoff, that was a weird one. What was it called? Star Crash. Star Crash. Then there's a Disney one we saw too that was like a space Disney one where it had this like weird robot guy.
Yeah, the Black Hole.
Black Hole. Thank you. I don't remember these titles. And like you just put all of those together and then it still does not match the weirdness of this one movie that apparently Dan Aykroyd just had like complete. Well, that's the other problem right there. Don't let someone have complete control over a movie without anyone reining them in, because this is what you get, especially with Dan Aykroyd. I was watching two guys earlier saying that like Dan Aykroyd's more of like an idea man. Like he puts out the crazy ideas. There's someone else to kind of parse through those ideas and then make something from them. You don't just give the idea man the whole movie just to do whatever he wants with, because you get this fucking thing. I mean, he created one of the best movie franchises ever in Ghostbusters, and and co-wrote that and co-wrote Blues Brothers. He's got talent there, and he's a great actor, but it's like. So there are many, many reasons why he was the driving force behind this. If you want to get into a little bit of trivia off the bat. So he had approached several directors and no one wanted to touch the movie. I wonder why. And John Landis, who had directed Blues Brothers, suggested that Dan do it, along with a couple other directors as well. So so that's basically how we got there, and then, it's so, weird. And plus there was like no on a set, like mediation from Warner Brothers, like
to like rein things in until the thing is though the movie might have had been better, but they wanted it to be a PG-13 movie. The studio did, and edited it heavily in post. So there may actually be a good director's cut of this movie. Who knows? But at the same time that this was being filmed, the Tom Hanks movie Bonfire of the Vanities, which is also a movie that went down as one of the worst movies of that decade, was being filmed, and there was like overages on budget on that one and stuff like that. And the studio was more concerned with that movie because it was going to be their big picture.
Yeah.
They didn't really pay attention to this film. So yeah.
Wow.
And, so this movie had a budget of $45 million in, 1990, 91 when it was made. Do you want to take a guess on the box office?
On like how much it earned?
Yeah.
I'm thinking like maybe 15 million, something like that.
8.4 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So it lost a lot of money. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was, much that went on. The movie, so basically after it's loosely based on there was an incident where Dan was driving and got pulled over and had to go in front of a judge in a small town. And that gave him the impetus for this movie. Yeah.
The one part. That's normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had also been like, he developed a friendship. It was developed after his friend, after a screening of the film Hellraiser.
Oh.
Yeah. He decided he wanted to make like a horror movie, a horror comedy, which I mean, he had already done pretty well with Ghostbusters, but I've also heard that the original Ghostbusters screenplay was really weird. It had them going to hell and all this other shit. So, yeah. The thing is they saw the audience laughing during Hellraiser and thought, hey, wouldn't it be good to make a horror comedy? So, basically what happened was like Dan was pulled over for speeding in upstate New York and was taken to the Justice of the Peace to stand trial in what Dan referred to as a kangaroo court. And after he was fined $50, the Justice of the Peace invited Dan to stay for tea, and he ended up staying there for 4 hours.
Wow.
And he like friendly with the guy and stuff. So, but that kind of gave him the idea of this movie. And they were going after they were like hoping that this would be like the next Beetlejuice.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he said it was like he wanted the movie to be like Beetlejuice meets the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I can sort of see it a little bit.
Yeah. He offered the script to John Hughes to direct, and John Hughes turned it down. Then he and suggested that he directed it himself. So did John Landis, and then and then poor John Candy took on 2 roles in this movie because he had turned down the Rick Moranis role in Ghostbusters and felt bad about that. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit of the behind the scenes here. There's more to it, but yeah. So I remember seeing this movie when it first came out on VHS as a kid at my cousin's house. We were over there, and he was just like, maybe it might have even been like a year or two after it came out. I don't know when it was, but he said, I had to be like right when it came out or something, because I remember being kind of younger. So it was like, he says, hey, well, let's watch this movie. And he had like a bunch of movies on VHS and stuff. And so we watched it, and he hadn't seen it yet, and neither had I. And we literally, after it was over, looked at each other like, what the hell did we just watch? And we were like little kids. So we're just like, yeah. And that's the last time I watched it. Had you ever seen this before?
Yeah, I do remember a little bit. Like, there's only 2 scenes that I remember. Is the dinner scene with like the like model trains moving around with like the mustard and ketchup, and the part where like the bones get like spit out into like to the wall or whatever. Like those are like literally only the 2 parts I remember from the movie. And the rap scene, I do remember that, but like everything else completely escaped my mind.
So yeah,
good thing.
Yeah, another bit of trivia. We can get more into it as we go, but this is the film debut of Tupac Shakur.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Yep. Let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah, along with Digital Underground, who Dan Aykroyd actually sought out for the movie.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he was a fan of Digital Underground. So yeah. Rest in peace, Shock G as well. AKA Humpty Hump. Yeah. They're the same person, if you didn't know that. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how they did this in the movie, where there were shots where I think it was just the way they did it in the angling and stuff, but that like the rap would go from Shock G to Humpty or vice versa.
Yeah.
And they were on screen like right after each other, and they're the same dude. So it's like really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was a lot. It was done a lot better than I think there was a scene where John Candy is in a scene with himself, and it looks horrible. You can see some of the lines on the green screen. Yeah. So let's dive in here and analyze this film that changed society forever.
All right. Yeah, sure.
What goes down here?
All right. So Chevy Chase's character, he's like this rich dude. His name was Chris.
Yeah.
He's going to like a party or something, and he meets Diane, Demi Moore's character, in the elevator. She's got a bunch of dogs with her that we never see again, by the way. No idea what happens to these dogs.
Yeah, who's taking care of the dogs? I mean, I'm assuming she probably has like a dog sitter.
Yeah, probably. And they're kind of like sort of flirting with each other, but like not really, or just very badly. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Hey, you can come to my party if you want. You know, we're just gonna have a few drinks or whatever." And she's like, "Okay, maybe I'll come." And then so she shows up, and then like she immediately like asked him if she can borrow his car, like 2 minutes after seeing him.
Yeah.
I guess like to go to Atlantic City, because she's a lawyer, by the way. Brought that for some reason. And then he's like, "No, I'll drive." And it's like, you guys literally just met each other. And then like, I don't know about you, but like, even like, I know Demi Moore was like super hot. I mean, she still is. Yeah. But like, even if like Demi Moore just met me like 30 seconds ago and immediately is like, "Hey, can I borrow your car so I can go to Atlantic City?" I'd be like, no. What are you going to do there? I mean, Atlantic City, that you're going to gamble my car away? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like the real Demi Moore could just walk up to you and that'd still be like, I don't think I'd lend her my car. No, I wouldn't, because like, why? For one thing, if she's rich, why does she need my car? My non-existent car. I don't have a car right now, but like, if I did, why? That's my first thought is, why does a rich, successful, beautiful actress, even in her 60s, doesn't have her own car, her own vehicle, needs to borrow mine? Like, there's got to be something weird going on there that I don't really want to be involved with. You know what I mean?
It's much like why a rich person running a country needs to start a meme coin and sell tennis shoes and watches and steak and everything and Bibles to get money off of people, even though he doesn't need it. And it's also kind of the I don't know, it's just weird. But anyways, regardless, in this movie, they just met, and but she's basically in a bad relationship or something with some guy, and there's something we never understand what's going on there.
No,
like that's why you to Atlantic City. That's just like, okay, that's the, I don't know. I think there should have been a scene explaining more why they had to go to Atlantic City.
Well, that's why you need to rein in Dan Aykroyd, because like these two guys were saying, they got their own review channel. I forgot the name of it. Sorry, but yeah, they were saying he's like an idea man, that like he's kind of known for this, like for people who work with them. Where it's like he's a genius, but like you have to rein him in, because like all of his ideas are just sort of separate from each other, and there's really no like cohesive narrative, and so he needs someone to help him put all that shit together. It doesn't mean he's bad at what he does, just that his strong suit is not narrative. It's like coming up with like really weird and wacky ideas, which is what we see in this movie. A lot of weird and wacky ideas. But yeah, anyway, he drives, but there's like these two weird people that are always trying to tag along. They're trying to lose.
In defense of Dan Aykroyd, he does have Asperger's, so it could explain things.
Well, that's the thing. It's I mean, I'm not defending it or not.
I'm not saying anything, and I'm not trying to say anything, but I think that might have explanations, and that's why he does kind of need some reining in when it comes to things.
I mean, I got the same diagnosis. Well, not Asperger's, because they don't use that term anymore. But when
Dan referred to it in interviews, so that's why I was.
Yeah, that's like what happened. When he was when he got diagnosed, they were still calling it that.
Yeah, he was diagnosed
I'm not saying
he was diagnosed
what's
after
that?
he was diagnosed like as an adult after he was on SNL and stuff too. So
Oh no, I just say
yeah.
you're still calling it that. Even up
yeah,
until
that's me. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and yeah. So what happens here?
These two people, the Brazilians, by the way, Chris refers to them as Brazilianaires. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like kind of like a racial. I don't know what that even meant. Like,
or he's just referring to them as that because they're Brazilian and they're millionaires. I don't know.
I thought that was. I guess that was supposed to be cool. I don't know. And so they try to leave as early as possible in the morning. He doesn't want to go at first because he's really tired because hungover. He can't really party like he used to. But then she shows up wearing the sexy dress. Mind you, the same dress she wore the night before. So I'm not sure what was different about her in the morning than in the night. So again, another unexplainable thing in the movie. And so suddenly he's like, oh, I'll go now. And his bellboy, whatever, sprays him with some Badaka. But then lo and behold, oh no, the Brazilianaires show up and they got their bags packed and they're ready to go. And she's like, hey.
The doorman, by the way, that is Dan Aykroyd's brother, Peter. So
yeah, it's right. Yeah, you mentioned that. And so they're like, oh no, we want to come. And then Chris is like, oh, I can't say no. I'm like, what do you mean you can't say no? You're an adult and you're rich. So what do these Brazilianaires have on you because you're such a nice guy? That's the other weird thing about his character. You mentioned like a Trump thing. There is, but there's also like a weird nice streak with them. And then they go, it's weird. Like they can't really make it work.
I mean, my thing with it is the reason I thought it was like Trump-like is because he's like, a yuppie in the 80s. That's the only reason. I mean, like in the late 80s, early 90s, that sort of thing. But he does have actual heart, which is different than Trump. But, so it's, yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. And so they go, there's so many weird, unexplainable things about this. Okay, so they go driving to Atlantic City. And the two Brazilianaires are mad at them because they thought they were going to go on a picnic, even though that was never said they were going to go on, but they just assumed. And they're like, oh, you're the worst host ever. We came with all these picnic supplies and, we were picnic supplies, whatever. We were going to give you a really nice picnic, but you don't want to go anywhere. Like acting like petulant children.
Yeah.
And so then Diane's like, trying to soothe them, well, hey, let's just see if we can just pull off somewhere and we could find a nice, spot to have a picnic. And so that calms them down.
So they get off the turnpike then. And
yeah, they get off and somehow they find themselves this really weird junkyard town somehow. I don't know exactly how.
Kind of like an Appalachia sort of backwoods town where it's and it's a rundown village called Valkenvania.
Yeah, which is a weird name for a town. It reminds me of vampire stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
Transylvania. Maybe that's what they were going for, something like that. And so all these rough people are kind of staring them down, what are you doing, our town boy type of thing, bunch of bikers and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh no, he runs a stop sign. And then, John Candy, his character, whatever, I forgot his character's name. He's
Dennis.
Dennis he's going to pull them over, but he waits until they get on the highway to do that for some reason. I don't know.
No, they weren't really on a highway. They were still on a road. It wasn't like the highway.
They're on a road.
Yeah. It's like a more paved road. Yeah,
like an actual paved road. Yeah, not just some shitty road. And then one of the Brazilianaires, the guy, he's like, "Oh, you don't have to stop." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you do. What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, you do. I'm pretty sure even in Brazil, that's the law. You can't just stop.
It's the rich privilege, sort of thing that they think they don't have to obey the law. So
I think that's what he was thinking. So. And then, so he's egging Chris on. I shouldn't say egging because now eggs are so expensive. You gotta preserve your eggs. But so he's non-egg. He was artificial powdered egging them on.
Yeah, he was vegan egging them. Yeah.
He was to speed, and he's like, "Oh, my car could go up to 130." Oh, cool, let's do that. And then Diane's like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't do that because that's really dangerous and we might get in more trouble because then you're speeding." And then he's like, "No, I'm going to go do it anyway." But oh no, Dennis's car has like these weird fire boosters in his police car for some reason. And then I'm like, what? And then so he's like, oh no, I'm gonna catch him. But then, oh, they're gonna make it. Oh no, but there's a weird contraption that suddenly goes on the road, makes them do a forced detour. And then once they go on the forced detour, Dennis lifts the, okay, what kind of legal zone are we living here where you could just create a wall out of nowhere, like it's a forced detour, and then put it back. What if someone else? What if he forgot to close that? Open it back up.
But it's a land that laws are Shire laws, which are laws that were made before the Magna Carta even existed, according to what we hear.
Yeah. That's the other thing, too. What jurisdiction are we living in here where, like, forget states' rights, we have, like, neighborhood rights here where it's like...
I don't know,
man. What else happened?
I have a feeling that our future is in this country. Anyways, so...
pretty much, yeah.
Well, really, I mean, the whole idea of what was that guy's name? There's a guy that was, like, a tech... like guru to a lot of people like JD Vance and Elon Musk and stuff. And he came up with the idea that he thinks that society should be run by like fiefdoms of like smaller people, like kingdoms.
Right.
Like the country should be split into like smaller, like even smaller than towns, like smaller neighborhoods that are all run by one person. Yeah. So yeah.
That's so fucking tough.
Yeah. So anyways, they're speeding. So Dennis pulls them over, and then he has to take them. He says, well, we can, I can take you to the court. You just follow me or whatever. So he goes with them, and we meet. But we go through this like big area with like all this junk all around, like weird folk art all over the place, a bunch of like random like appliances all over, and most of that was real. So like they bought a bunch of junk.
Wow.
And created this on a backlot or somewhere, or like in an area in California. So,
my God,
I will give it this movie has interesting and really detailed set design and great makeup for its time. It's like,
totally.
The guy that did the makeup on this also created Freddy Krueger's makeup. So
I could see that. All right. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So it's like, you got a top guy here and everything. So, and then the cinematography is decent in this movie too. It's done by Dean Cundey, who is one of the greatest cinematographers in like film history, who also directed Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Yeah, we did that one too.
It was probably, I think, our first episode or something.
No, not our first. It was one of our first.
It was there. It was pretty close. Yeah.
It was pretty early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our first episode was Glass, and then we redid that last year.
That was for our other podcast. I'm talking for this show.
Oh, from this show. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Probably was our first. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's like he was a cinematographer on the original Halloween, on, The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, Apollo 13, a lot of classic movies. And then he's made his directorial debut with Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. Nice. And he also, like, as far as like television goes, he was the cinematographer on a bunch of episodes of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett recently. So he did episodes of The West Wing back in the day. He's pretty talented. So I'm saying they've got a good crew on this movie. So
no, there's a lot of good stuff about the movie. It's just that there's no cohesive narrative to it. Like if there was something to fill in, that's my issue with the movie. It's like all filler, but not like the main thing. Like, so it's like all whipped cream, but there's like really very little ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, it's like everyone loves whipped cream. It's awesome, sure, but like there's no ice cream. It's just kind of like it's a nice little treat, but it's just not as good. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
Yeah.
So anyways, we get into this. We drive up to this old like mansion courthouse looking thing. And there's we get in front of the judge, Alvin Valkenheiser, who's an 106-year-old grandfather.
Yep.
So
Hey.
Chris ends up offending Elvin.
Yeah.
And so while this happens, because he's upset because he thinks he's a banker, and there's some history with bankers here.
Yeah.
And so there's like a trap door that they fall into a big pile of squeaky toys.
Yep.
I have that in my house. I don't know about you.
Cool.
Yeah. Got a trap door. So if you ever come over to visit, just be careful.
Be careful. All right, cool. I'll make sure to.
Don't offend me, because if you do,
I'm going to go into the rubber ducky squeaky pit. Hey, at least it's better than other pit that we have in the movie.
Yeah. So Chris offends him because he cusses and then says that and everything, and there's no cussing there. Hidden room under the courthouse, and then they're told that they're going to be judged the next day before they're dropped into there. So, and they were just trying to get to Atlantic City that day. Yep. They later then overhear the judge, executing a group of convicted drug dealers that come up with Daniel Baldwin as one of them.
Right. So murder takes place in this movie.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is they get put on this roller coaster, which was actually a decommissioned roller coaster that they bought for this movie and rebuilt on the set.
Oh.
From like a small amusement park somewhere. And the roller coaster is nicknamed Mr. Bone Stripper.
Mm.
And so when you get to the end of the thing, you go into this bone stripper, and it basically eats you up and then spits your bones out behind it. So, that's the way they punish people that do drugs.
Murder. They murder people in this weird town. Yeah. That apparently it's legal to murder now,
which isn't too far off from what our future holds.
It reminded me for a second when he said his 106-year-old grandfather. Is he one of those 150-year-olds that are taking the Social Security checks? I'm just wondering.
Yes,
I was just wondering. Okay.
Yes, and pretty soon we're all going to be sent to Guantanamo Bay and get killed anyway. So it's okay. Maybe they should make it fun. And when they kill people, instead of like having like an electric chair or a gas chamber, they should have a bone stripper.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that'd be fun, but
I know not for the people being killed. I'm just saying for everybody else, it would be fun. No, I'm joking. It's disgusting.
I know it's so fucked up.
Yeah. You got to make fun of things. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Or you're just
humor.
Right? And then next week we'll be tuning into All Too Cry with Mike and Sesame. And it's just us crying for a half hour. Yes.
Right.
So they're all eventually invited upstairs for the weirdest dinner scene I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when we learn that he's got like a long-standing grudge against bankers, which he thinks Chris is, even though he's just like a financial expert or whatever. So I guess it's close enough, but still, yeah.
Yeah, for him, maybe he doesn't know the difference, but
yeah, because like generations ago, the Valkenheiser family was put into poverty because of a banker who told them to invest in something, and I don't know. I didn't get that fully, but yeah,
I didn't really understand what that meant. Like, whatever. There was no explanation as to like, are they really poor though? Because it seems like, he's got this mansion and it's got all kinds of contraptions. The junkyard itself is probably worth millions of dollars with how much stuff they got there.
They even point that out, and they said, you could probably make a bunch of Toyotas off of this. You ever thought about selling the stuff? That's what he said to him. It's just like, it's true.
Yeah. I don't understand. Whatever. It's fine. It's again, Stan Aykroyd. They probably didn't really think that through, but
yeah. But still, it's movie logic too. You don't have to, got to turn your brain off when it comes to certain things, I guess. But they were where was I? Yeah. So eventually, while this is happening, we meet Eldona, the granddaughter, the twin sister of Dennis, also played by John Candy, who I will say makes a pretty convincing, beautiful woman, Mm-hmm. So, yeah. She ends up like, they attempt to escape, but first off, the Brazilianaires escape because they were offended that there's a on the table, the way that there's like a train that goes around the table that you can get your condiments off of. You also have the hot dogs they were
oh God,
they were serving were the most disgusting looking ones. And I mean, it's never said, but I'm just assuming that they're made out of the meat from the people that they just, murdered in the bone stripper. That's just my guess.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it could be. It's like they're gray, like sausagey. Mm-hmm. And he's eating that hot dog is so fucking disgusting, man. And like I would run away too. Like,
and in the makeup in certain scenes, his nose is made to look like a penis.
What the fuck? Okay.
So in that scene where he's eating the hot dog, there's a kind of close up on him eating the hot dog, and you look at his nose, and it looks even more like on other scenes it looks like a penis, but in that one it really looks phallic. It just totally.
I swear to God, I don't have any words. I don't know, man. Like,
yeah. And they thought this would be fun.
They thought it would be funny, but the way he's eating that hot dog, I mean, he's got mustard all over his face. He's like staring at them as he's eating it, which that's another weird thing too. Like, don't look at people while you're eating. That's weird. Like,
I should probably stop that then, right?
You should probably stop that. No. And then that was the thing that said
I do it every time I eat, even when I'm home. I invite people over just so I could stare at them while I eat, and then I make them leave.
While you get like mustard all over your face, yeah. Yes. And so like, I mean, I can understand why that would be the final thing that set them off. I mean, they were patient enough to endure everything else, but then you see this old guy just like going to town on this quote hot dog, with like mustard slathered all over his ugly ass face, with his penis nose falling off. And then, I would jump through the fucking window too.
The thing that they say that like upsets them is the guy is upset that pickles are being shot at his sister.
Oh yeah, because another contraption he had was like a pickle shooter. Because why not? I mean, we're already in this world. We might as well just go all in. And
But honestly, he was fine through the gross eating of the hot dog. But then when the pickles started flying, it's like we're done.
I guess that was the straw that broke the bone stripper's back or whatever, and
the billionaire's back. Yeah.
And so they jump through the window, and then they escape, like you said. Mind you, what happens after they escape? Did they get caught? Did they get brought back to the mansion and punished really badly for trying to escape? What happens to these people?
So there's like this moat that they had to, or like this river that they had to go, this like small little creek, I guess, that a literal drawbridge came down when they were coming into the place. So they had to swim through this like sludge of water, and then they get to the other side, and Dennis, the sheriff, ends up being convinced to help them because he finds them, and then he ends up they're like, hey, you should probably, spend some time with us in Brazil or whatever. So yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah. That's another thing too. A lot of the stuff just falls apart in this movie. Like there's no big moment, like, cause like throughout the movie so far, Dennis has like these like small disagreements with the way things are going, like the way he looks, or
yeah, he's kind of like
he's not
reason in a lot of things too. So yeah,
he's not fully on board. So you're thinking like, oh, is he going to finally stand up to the judge? No, he just leaves with them to Brazil, and that's it. Like, we don't see him. We do see him packing his bags for like a minute.
See, what I really wonder is if there was more scenes with the Brazilians and Dennis that got cut from the movie.
Maybe. Yeah, because, that could be.
Yeah, because I think that it just seemed too easy for them to escape.
Yeah, I mean, they just go through the nasty water. And it's not even that wide of a creek, mind you. It's just a little. I mean, it's like 10 feet maybe to cross to the other side. I mean, that's not much. And then, I mean, there could have been a director. I mean, this cut itself is an hour and a half long. But then again, this is Dan Aykroyd. He probably would have been like a 4-hour movie. So which I would not watch a 4-hour movie of this.
I think it should be a limited series on HBO Max. Wait, no.
No. No, don't even say that, because now they're probably gonna fucking do it, man. They're gonna have like a Dan Aykroyd returns as the judge, and this time he's actually close to the real age now, and
closer.
I don't know. So what just gets me is that the Brazilians, they had a better chance of escaping than the main characters did, and I'm like, well, don't they usually sacrifice like the bit characters first, but then they got away first? So it's like a reverse of like what? Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just something that happened. By the way,
you get rid of your minorities first too. So, but they got rid of them, but they escaped. They didn't die. So yeah.
So, they escaped their own militia this time. They didn't get deported. Yeah. Speaking of deportation, I saw this stupid ass Facebook page that I'm getting all these dumb Facebook pages that are just like show up on my feed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I looked at one of them, and then one of the pictures someone had posted in the comments literally had the Statue of Liberty pointing in a direction that says, go now or see you later. And like, it's this, people are saying it's the Statue of fucking Liberty. Like, you pick the most ironic thing you could. I mean, you could pick anything else. You could pick like Uncle Sam, for example, because Uncle Sam could be neutral.
That's something that literally says, give us your, huddled masses and your people yearning to be free and all that stuff on it. So it's like,
and so everyone was dragging her, and someone said like, "Oh, God bless your soul, Sarah," or whatever her name was. And I was just like, "Oh my God!" But anyway, so yeah, the Brazilians go of their free will to their mansion or their really rich abode.
Speaking of deportation, though, really quick, in my town today, around town, people were leaving leaflets that said, "Leave now, self-deport, avoid detention. Americans on guard, help us protect our homeland from the Trinity White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan."
Well, that means you got the KKK up in Finley.
Yeah.
Or at least one person.
Yeah, but they were on like tons of people's porches this morning. I looked at mine. I didn't get any. I guess they don't want me to leave, so I'm going to stay.
Start getting cameras and just recording these people and to find out who they are and show their faces. Upload them to YouTube, Facebook. X, they probably take them down because X likes Nazis now. But this movie though is kind of like that, but worse. No, not really. And,
so after the Brazilians leave, what happens now?
Diane and Chris, they get sent down this chute and they end up going into different directions. So Diane,
they got locked in. First, they got locked into like a room that they had to sleep in overnight. So yeah.
Oh right, and they got locked in there. But then later on, for some reason, they got sent down. I don't remember. They got sent down to chute. There's so many things happen in this movie. It's hard to remember them all.
And the scene where that happens is where we get the title. We get the titular line of the movie. Cause like Chris kisses Diane. And she says, and she's like, "Oh, you're nothing but trouble."
You're right. Yep. There you go.
That was the studio insisting that be the title of the movie, as opposed to Dan Aykroyd wanted the movie to be called Valkenvania.
See, that's what I'm saying. Even the name, it was stupid. Like he could have chose like.
Well, my opinion, Nothing But Trouble is too generic of a name. I think Valkenvania would have been a better name. That's just
okay. Well.
I'm just saying it would have at least implied, because the way that they marketed this movie, it was like it's a comedy, that you didn't even get the fact that it was like a dark horror comedy sort of thing, from the marketing for the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they get set down the chute. They go in separate directions. Chris goes through the bone stripper thing, but then the power goes out because there's been like these rumblings. Oh, that's the other thing too. Like occasionally, you'll get these like rumblings
underground,
and then the grandpa's like, "Oh, no big deal, it's fine." And then that's what Dennis goes. He hopes, because it just ignores the problem that like this place might blow it.
Yeah, because there's like oil under the ground or something, and that the bone stripper one of the like gears breaks on it because of the rumbling, and that's what causes it to break, and he just gets spit out and not into a pile of bones.
Right. He sees the pile of bones, but he's not.
Before this, though, there was an important scene where, not that any scene in this movie is important, but it's important to this unimportant movie. Diane and Chris are in this room that is filled with IDs and news clippings.
Oh yeah.
And they put together that Alvin has been capturing and like killing people for like his family since like the 1800s.
Right.
So, cause they find like like Jimmy Hoffa's like ID and stuff in there. So it's like
wait a minute.
Yeah.
But he lets some of them go. So it's like,
yeah.
I don't know. And I guess it just decides who gets to go and who dies or whatever. And then like an emperor king, God king, like Donald Trump. Anyway. And so she kind of gets out, quote unquote, easy, although I wouldn't say easy, but she's kind of out and about, whereas he's like in the bone crushing area. And then I don't know how else to describe this, dude. She meets these fucking weird monster like dudes who are like blacksmiths, but they act like children. So like that's actually impressive.
They're literally like babies, but like adult sized babies
who are somehow.
Who are wearing diapers, and they're named Bobo and Little Devil.
Right, I guess. And then one of them is played by Dan Aykroyd's brother, I think, right?
No, it's Dan Aykroyd, and then the other one is like a guy that was like, did like sound on Ghostbusters or something.
Oh, okay.
It's not even really.
And so they're like, God, dude, they're arguing with each other about how to do the blacksmithing correctly, I guess. I don't know. It's stupid. Yeah. And then she shows up and they're like, intruder. But then, what's his granddaughter's name? I forgot her name. Aldona.
Yeah.
Aldona shows up and she's gonna throw her into a fire pit, but then they convince her not to because they like her and want her to be their friend. Yeah. So she's like, oh, fine or whatever. And then so they start playing cards together. And then one of the players doesn't know how it works. So she's like, no, Bobo's wins because his card was on top or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's just stupid. But like they want her to be their friend, so like she becomes her friend.
Talking like them too.
Yeah, because trying to like relate to them and stuff. But one of them is like, I win Diane. I'm like, oh boy, this is getting kind of weird now. Like no, she's like, no, you don't. You know, like act like they're kids. It's like, oh, okay.
And then while this is going on, Chris like sneaks into. Before this, Chris had been looking through a hole in the wall at the judge in his bedroom, and we find out that his like nose is fake. He takes his nose off, and there's like just like dead skin under there. You can like see into the bones and stuff. It was gross. And then he also is missing a leg that we find out later he lost in World War I. So he eventually sneaks into the room after the judge leaves, and he tries to escape. He grabs a gun and stuff like that. But while he's being chased out the hall, he runs into Aldona, and Alvin stops attacking him and declares that Chris must comply with the house policy. God. Which means that any man that touches Aldona must marry her.
What the fuck? But they gotta touch her. She can't touch them. That's the rule.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if she puts like a hand on her shoulder, it doesn't count.
No.
But if he brushes up against her, then now it's a forced marriage.
Yeah.
Arranged and forced marriage.
Yes.
Between the would-be suitor, the forced suitor, I guess, and then probably a literal shotgun wedding at this point, to be honest. And I just gotta go back. I'm sorry, dude. I can't deal with this. So, are these people supposed to be human? Because these baby are they even human? Like how? What are they? Like they can't be human, right?
Well, I mean, they are, but I guess they're grotesque and because like they ate too much or something. I don't know.
They don't look human to me at all. They look like beings. Sure, they look like creatures who have legs. Yeah,
they look like rejects from the Cabbage Patch Kids or something. But still, it's Garbage Pail Kids, not Cabbage Patch Kids. But yeah, the
question is though. Oh, all right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, how is it then that Aldona looks like a normal human being, but then these Dennis, people don't. Yeah.
And Dennis does as well.
Yeah, Dennis does as well.
I think there might be some inbreeding.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Or something. Because we never know who. See, the thing is who are, because those are all his grandkids. Who are their parents?
Right. Well, that's the thing. With Dennis, I didn't understand if he was a grandchild or not, because he's still like an orphan. Because he's like, I've been working for them since I was 8 years old. So I don't know.
All adopted, but I mean the other thing is like if Bobo and Little Devil are really his grandkids, like I don't know how they came to be, who are their parents, what's going on, so
it's very again, it's an Aykroyd thing where you just don't know. And then
after this happens, after the house policy thing happens, we see a big hearse pull up outside, being followed by a cop car, and Digital Underground walks out.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they're put in front of the because they were pulled over for speeding, and the group tells Elvin that they're musicians, and he orders them to verify with a performance, and then we get a performance. We get a performance of their hit song, "Same Song," in the middle of the movie.
So the music video now takes place within the canon universe.
Yeah. The music video itself is even longer, and it just shows clips from the movie and different things like that. And the music video itself is worth watching because you actually get to hear like Tupac rap. You don't hear him in the movie. So
that's just fucking hilarious, dude. That Tupac got his start both as a musician and as an actor in nothing but fucking trouble. Like,
I mean, this was just he joined Digital Underground because he was with them for a little while. So it's basically everybody else tries like Dr. Dre and Suge Knight and other people try to take credit for popularizing Tupac. I mean, he would have become something on his own, but the thing is, Shock G is produced his first solo album and stuff like that. So basically, Shock G is who discovered Tupac. So it's like,
yeah, it's just exactly. And also the judge apparently liked him too. And so they go off doing proving this musician thing. And the judge just pulls out this organ and just starts jamming with the man. It was actually really good. I'm like, this guy could play. And they were like impressed. They're like, whoa, they're impressed too. Like, oh, I didn't know the judge could play.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I guess if you're in a group with a guy who has a weird nose, you're not really turned off by a judge that has a weird nose.
Exactly. So that was why they had a camaraderie, I think. He's like, oh, this guy knows how I feel. And he's also a musician. So we could play together, and then I'll let them go and not be killed by the bone crushing machine.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, hey, you can help me out, though. And they're like, oh, be the wedding band for my granddaughter's wedding. And anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You get
no, you're good. And they play they actually have a song called Tie the Knot, which is like the song they play.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. They were both on the soundtrack to this movie and as well as one of their albums. So anyways, he has them stay and witness the wedding. And Chris initially goes through with the wedding in exchange for his life. Cause it was basically like, you can marry my granddaughter and then inherit all of this lovely land of Valkenvania.
Yeah.
And or die. So
that's it. So you gotta marry my granddaughter by force, and then then you have kids with her. So then he has great grandchildren, I guess. I don't know. And then he can inherit this pile of junk. But hey, you gotta understand though, he is a man of his word, right? Because he hates bankers, but he's like, hey, this is the house rules. So unlike Trump, he follows the rules that he himself lays on people. So that's something nice about him.
That's true. So like basically then, Chris is like pleading for his life and he doesn't really want to be married, but he does get married. They actually have the wedding. So, he starts like pleading with the band to help him escape. The band just leaves. It's basically like, we don't want to get involved.
He's like, no, the one guy's like, don't worry, I was nervous on my wedding too. You'll be fine, or something like that.
Yeah. So this is when he gets sent to the bone stripper and gets out.
Okay.
Yeah. So then Diane is caught by the judge, and he tries to lure Chris in by basically saying, you got to come here, or and I can kill you instead of Diane.
Right.
And there's another murderous contraption that they call the grader teen.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's basically just like a bunch like these like I don't know, blades on a contraption that'll lower down and basically quarter you. Yeah.
Oh.
So basically then, Chris basically, helps them escape because he ends up setting his coat on fire, and there's a bunch of these barrels that are like probably full of like oil or something. And then he creates this big diversion and sets them on fire. And then they end up escaping on a freight train that's passing by.
Yep.
By jumping on it. And then they report their ordeal to like authorities, to like the FBI and some cops and stuff, in this like big convoluted thing that they're drawing on a dry erase board and stuff. And so the cops say that they have to come with them back to the place to identify the people.
Yeah. What the fuck? Okay.
Which would never happen in reality.
No.
So the troopers are basically what ends up happening. They get there, and we realize that all the troopers are allied with Alvin, the judge, due to his
every
ability.
single one.
Yeah, because they like the swift way he takes care of undesirables.
Okay, that's Nazi shit right there. But
yeah,
But
yeah. What were you? Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying that, like, he's got the FBI on his, like, who is this guy? Like,
and so they're gonna kill Chris and Diane because they know too much. So, but then the massive coal fires underneath roar up out of control, and like there's like a bunch of shaking on the ground, and the courthouse like falls into like these pits of hell. And Chris and Diane are able to escape in the Beamer that they drove in on, which is like missing its top and seatbelts and everything. So they escape back to New York, and we see in Brazil, the Brazilians are there, where Dennis has become the head of their security, as well as Ronaldo's boyfriend. So so then we're back in New York, and Chris is having like a what they call a day mirror in this or something, or nap mirror or something. I can't remember what they said. And then there's a news broadcast of the Valkenvania disaster, and shows that there's a bunch of oil there. So now the people that own the land are rich. And they show this guy rummaging through the debris, and it turns out to be the judge. And he shows Chris's driver's license and says, I'm gonna go move in with my banker grandson-in-law in New York.
Like, no, like, see, dude.
And then Chris like runs basically through the wall, and we see like a cartoonish like hole in the shape of him in the wall, like it's Roger Rabbit or something, So it's like, and that's the end of our movie.
Like, whoa, yeah, that's it. That's the whole movie. That's it. Yep.
Oh boy. So yeah. Do you want to hear a little bit of trivia here?
Yeah.
Let's see here. In 2020 and a 2021 commentary for the Blu-ray of this movie was released on Blu-ray. Dan Aykroyd reveals that he was briefly hospitalized during production due to overwhelming stress of directing and playing two large supporting roles in the film.
Wow.
Yeah. So if Chevy Chase had to turn down the role of Chris Thorne, Rick Moranis was the second choice.
Wow. I don't think that would have worked out.
No. I mean, he's a funny actor, but I don't think he could play the suave, guy as well. Dan Aykroyd almost missed out on being in My Girl due to having to do more edits on this film. Yeah. Which is one of his better roles. My Girl. So I'm glad he didn't, Yeah. There's been talk, rumors that on the set, nobody could get along with Chevy Chase.
Well, that sounds normal.
Yeah, but Dan Aykroyd himself said that this isn't true. But Bertilla Damas, who is the only cast member to acknowledge that she did not get along with Chevy Chase while making the film. She said Chase was very nasty to her on set. But Dan Aykroyd actually has publicly said that Chase and Demi Moore did not get along during production, though.
Oh, wow.
Chase and Moore have never expressed their dislike for each other in public, though. So, yeah. But I will tell you, you can see throughout the movie certain scenes where it just feels like Chevy Chase is just phoning it in. Like he's not there. It just, but I think a lot of the stuff where Aykroyd had defended Chase was like in the media, was like things like on the Arsenio Hall show and stuff I'm reading here. It's like, was just basically to make it not seem like people weren't getting along on the movie, So,
yeah,
because they like appeared together on Arsenio Hall at the time. And several members of Digital Underground revealed during production while taking breaks from filming that they enjoyed conversing with Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, and John Candy. Apparently Chase, who was reportedly difficult on set, did pratfalls for them, similar to when he was on the casts of Saturday Night Live, allowing, however, they said Demi Moore was the only cast member to not interact with them. Apparently, while taking breaks, she spent time alone in her trailer. She was probably upset about Chase, so she didn't. That's my feeling. Dan Aykroyd had briefly considered Chris Farley for the role of either Bobo or Little Devil.
That would be kind of cool.
Because many labeled Farley as the next John Belushi or John Candy, of which Aykroyd was good friends with, both. But NBC would not allow Farley to be released from his contract with SNL to be in this. Wow. So so that's some of the trivia. This movie currently holds a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think it should be lower. It's like the user reviews is like a 48% though, so it's really weird. So I guess it's kind of become like a cult classic, so in a way. So yeah, exactly. Anything else to say about this cinematic masterpiece before we're done talking?
The masterpiece, it reminds me. What was it? That guy I used to read sometimes, Michael Muhammad Knight.
Yeah,
his dad had he had like schizophrenia and stuff like that. He'd always had these weird theories, and one time he told Michael that he thought his actual biological father was Dan Aykroyd, because like they shared like certain like features of like their forehead or something like that.
Interesting.
So even when it's not Dan Aykroyd himself doing something, it's like him and his energy somehow find a way to like make it into like other people's minds who are not like completely well or whatever. Like,
well, often when I'm not feeling well, Dan Aykroyd enters my mind. So, does. Yeah, no. He believes in all that supernatural stuff. He's into ghosts and stuff. So maybe he does enter people's minds.
Oh, true.
In another life, Dan Aykroyd could have been a cult leader.
I mean, that's not a good thing, but yeah.
Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Go to all2real2.com, check out our website. You can get all of our past episodes on there, or wherever you're listening right now. We've got like hundreds of episodes. If you have any suggestions of movies that we should cover in the future, send them along to mike@cullenpark.com, or contact us on any of the social media that we have listed at all2real2.com. We currently have a new t-shirt on our TeePublic. Orange Julius Caesar. I'm proud of this one that we came up with together. Yes, I like the shirt. I think it's great. Check it out. Check out, like I said, the Trans Lifeline website that I was talking at the beginning, because trans people are going through a lot of issues right now and need all the help we get in this country, sadly. And just remember that I love you. Sesame loves you. Brazilian heirs love you. Yes, they do. Trans lives are human lives. On Earth, no human is illegal. Black lives matter. Free Palestine. And until next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.